Go to TAPgiles.com to learn dreams, engage my services, and support the channel. Previously we found out how to get each die to roll itself. Now we'll total up the sum of all the dice once they're finished rolling. And for an actual game, you probably want to know if they're all settled and sorted and ready to go, and then kind of look at what numbers they had to use in your calculation or in your game, or move that many spaces, stuff like that. So until it's actually readable, we want to send a signal which kind of indicates that this dice is not ready. So I'll wire readable into a not gate. So this is essentially if it's not readable yet or it's not settled yet, then this will send a signal, and we can use that to power a tag. So this one is still rolling. And then over here we can say look for still rolling, and if there's any of those, then we can just have some text like that. And when there's a lot of dice, still rolling, and now it's not rolling, and then we can use those values. So how do we get those values out? We can just send it when this readable sends a signal, because then we know it's completely ready. So if we grab a wireless transmitter and power it only when it's readable, and then we send the side that we got, and we give this a name like value. But the problem is, if we have more than one of these, I'll just rotate this one. Let's set up the receiver, and let's just put all this in a chip, so tidy up a bit. Okay, so this is looking in the scene for that transmitter called value, up and down on the D-pad, and let's see what that gives us. So just move it over there. So we've got a 2 and a 1, but it's giving us a 2, and if this landed on a 4, it would give us the 4, because when there's many transmitters going to one receiver, it just gives us the value that is furthest from 0, unless we are sending a fat wire. So to make a fat wire, we use a combiner again, and we just have one value that we really care about, so we'll just put it onto 2 numbers just as an excuse to make it a real fat wire, and then we wire that into the fat wire, and we send the fat wire instead. And then on this side we split the fat wire and because we used A over here, we use A over here. So what this does is it actually averages out all of the signals coming from these fat wires. So it'll average this, which would be a 2, with this, which would be a 6. And which means it adds them all up and then divides it by how many transmitters it found, which is 2. So it would be 6 plus 2 is 8, divided by 2 is 4. So if we try that, and we got 4. But if we multiply it by 2, because we know that's how many dice there are, then we can get back to the original sum, which would be 8. So if we multiply, an easy way of finding how many of these dice there are is just having another tag. So if we grab a tag, and you say die, and then in here we can use a trigger zone looking for that tag, and if we turn up the number required, then it will send the number detected of that tag. So how many of that tag are there in the scene? So we can multiply that by that, and we'll get back to that sum of all of the added up values that we rolled. So we multiply by that, and then display that. So you can see, and it's found 2 of those tags because there are 2 tags in the scene. So it's multiplying it by 2, and then we're getting back to our 8, which is the sum of the dice. And now if I just copy a whole load of those dice, it's going to add them all up when they're all finished. And I'm going to have fewer of them so that I don't have to do too much adding up in my head. Right, so we've got 5, a 6, and a 2, which is 11, 13, and that's added up to 13. So now this chip knows that what we rolled and that we've finished rolling, or that we're still rolling. So if we use a not gate, then we could only display this if we have finished rolling. There's nothing still rolling. But you can kind of see that it flashes right at the start because the trigger zone needs a frame to actually find stuff. So we need to like turn this not gate off for just a single frame right at the start to give it a chance to work properly. So we use a timeline, make it really short, zoom in, and we have a keyframe that turns the not gate off. So that's these, because I zoomed in, these are individual logic frames. So for one logic frame at the start of the scene, it will turn that off and then it will work as normal. So it still appeared. So I put it onto two things and then it didn't, I don't know. So I'll just rotate these to different sides. Oh, I won't rotate that one. So now we got a 4, and a 2, and that adds up to 10. And it showed it only when they'd all stopped rolling. And then we could use that to like use that number and tell the player or something, and then the player's pawn like moves along on the track or something like that. The next part moves on to pawns and how to move them along a path like a classic board game. Subscribe to be notified when the next part is out. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something interesting. Go to patreon.com/TAPgiles to learn something new every day.